We return now with Bruce Springsteen, the man, the songwriter, the performer. This past April marked another milestone in Springsteen's career, his first major tour of Europe. Starting in Germany, the band played Switzerland, France, Spain, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Scotland, and England. 32 shows. For the band, it was a very important time. John Landau, Bruce's manager, friend, and co-producer, graciously spoke to us about this tour. We asked him what was involved in preparing for these shows abroad.
Our feeling is when we play, when the show happens, wherever it happens, whoever it happens for, it is always equally important, you know. And what we wanted to do was we wanted the European people to see this show exactly as it is, exactly as it's been. They've been hearing about it for years and years. The press has been wonderful for us in Europe all these years. And our philosophy was we wanted them to see exactly what it is. We didn't want to scale it down in any way. We didn't want to edit it in any way. We wanted the sound to be exactly the same, the lights, the production. You know, we just wanted it to be, here it is. And that way we would know, hey, if people liked it, they were liking the real thing, and if they didn't like it, then they're just not fans, because they're not going to not like it because of any compromises we've made. The thing about Europe is our attitude was no compromises.
When an American rock and roll band from New Jersey plays to non-English speaking audiences, you'd think there'd be a problem. But Bruce's manager told us otherwise.
It was one of those things where from the first second, it just went beautifully. And I know I was concerned because the tour was starting in Germany. And I personally was just not concerned so much as I was just very curious to see if a German audience, what the foreign language factor was going to do. And we started in a town called, in the city of Hamburg, and which we were advised by everyone under the sun is the crowd there is supposedly a real, you know, sit on their ass, and if there is prolonged applause at the end of the night, we were told to consider that the equivalent of a standing ovation in the United States, you know. The audience is just supposed to be just listeners, you know. And there were about 3,000 people there. In Europe, we played a mixture of theaters and arenas, you know, and we just played whatever we wanted to play, and whatever was the main place people played, that's where we played, you know. So in Hamburg, we were playing in, that's what they have there. They have a 3,000-seat modern theater, very antiseptic, a little Avery Fisher-ish, you know, and it was our first show there, and I think everybody was just, you know, curious, really. And of course, when everybody was out of their chairs on 10th Avenue, I mean, it was like from the first note, it was there. It was in the first note, it was there, and this particular audience stood up for the entire second set. I mean, they did not sit down. They didn't sit down on Point Blank.
This is WNEW-FM New York, 102.7. Bruce Springsteen, the man, the songwriter, the performer, is being brought to you by Penthouse Magazine, New York, New Jersey Subaru dealers, and Maxell Tapes. Here's more from John Landau.
And I'll tell you, one of the most amazing things that happened was that Bruce has this thing that sort of evolved on the American tour, where when he goes into Hungry Heart, audiences everywhere, for some reason, spontaneously, always start singing that song with him right on the first verse. And it happened in Hamburg. Same exact thing that happens at Madison Square Garden with these 3,000 kids. The only thing that was unusual was half the audience was singing it in German, half of it was singing it in English. Some people were singing the verse, some people were singing the chorus. It was like everybody was singing something, but everybody was singing something different.
Bruce Springsteen's story has a first-hand report on the Paris show.
It was that the foreign audience, I guess because of the language difficulty, was you could hear them paying attention. I don't know if that makes sense. Or you could feel them straight to get everything. There was this rabid enthusiasm, and there was Bruce going out there. The band was playing great. And Bruce himself was singing great. relaxed at certain points. He changed a few things around. He opened with Factory that night.
Continue now with Bruce Springsteen, the man, the songwriter, the performer. Here's John Landau, Bruce's manager again. This time, he's got a great story about one of the Swedish fans.
There are just some humorous things, different cultures and different things. The Swedish press. Sweden happens to be a country where Bruce had a good measure of prior success, recording success, more so than in many of the others. And they did treat this thing they were hilarious with the amount of attention that they were spending on him. And in one of the tabloids, which is a big paper in Stockholm, we couldn't believe it, because after we did 2 shows in Stockholm, which were exhilarating shows, but the front page, the damn front page of this paper has got the entire front page is a picture of Bruce, which we all thought was great, because we just figured, well, I guess nobody invaded anybody yesterday, because nothing too important could have happened, because here, look at this. Then there was all these pages of pictures, pages and pages and stories, which of course we couldn't read. We had people translating them for us, and all in Swedish. And then on the back page, what really aroused our attention was the back page was one story, was one story. And there's this big picture of this lonely, sad-looking dog. And we could make out Bruce's name in the headline, but we did not, looking at this thing, here's a picture of a dog with Bruce's name at the top. What could this be? And, they're sitting there joking with each other about, this must be a story about how the dog tried to buy tickets for the show and couldn't get in, and he's left outside, and here it is, the poor dog, or something. It's got to be something absurd, It was a story about the dog that ate the tickets, and it seemed to be some story or another about how this kid had bought tickets, and his dog had eaten the tickets, and the kid been waiting, and so forth, and was panicked, and took the dog to a doctor and got some kind of x-rays made, and that he gave to the promoter or somebody to show that he had really bought the tickets, and he got into the show. This was the entire back page of a newspaper in Stockholm. I think it was hilarious. I think we're a little embarrassed by it, but the amount, it was just, but it was great, and they, it's just like, what could you say? What could you say about that?
While in England for the British leg of the tour, Dave Marsh ran into Peter Townsend of The Who and had the pleasure of taking him to see Springsteen live for the first time.
Pete walks in, fresh from America, looking sort of like boiled cabbage. Worse, just pale, ghostly. And we kind of said, well, look, we're going down an hour and a half. We're going down to, we're going to drive down to Brighton. Want to come to Brighton? So what are you going to do? So we're going to see Springsteen. I said, yeah, I'll come, We'll take my car. So we sort of threw him in the car and drove to Brighton, which, first of all, what a perfect place, given the history of mod riots and stuff, and the Who's own history, to have him see Bruce for the first time. So along about Badlands, he leans over to me and he says, this is really amazing. Really? It's amazing, huh? I'm feeling a little better. He said, yeah, it's not the music exactly. What is it? I just said, well, it's whatever he's singing about in this song. That's what it's about. But it was great, And he said to me later, well, if you told me it was this good, I wouldn't have believed it. Which is great, because I always feel like I've sort of been telling people that it was so good that nobody would believe me anyway. Which is a very common kind of Springsteen fan reaction. It's like, and he immediately got, well, it's better than what everybody's been telling me it is. And he really dug it, and he went to a lot of shows, and they wound up playing together in Birmingham on the last night or the next to the last night of the tour. He came out. I wasn't there again. Damn. He came out with one of Stevie's hats on and played Born to Run in Detroit Medley.
Happy Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band that returned from Europe just a few weeks ago. The plan was a few weeks' rest before opening the Brendan Byrne Arena at the New Jersey Meadowlands. However, just a few turned home, Bruce was asked to perform at Survival Sunday in Los Angeles this past June 14th. And so he traveled another 3,000 miles and appeared at the benefit. Here's Danny Goldberg, director of the No Nukes film.
As far as I know, it was an unscheduled appearance. The fact that he did it underscores that his belief in this issue was not just a one-time thing. How anybody who knows Bruce could think that he would ever do anything impulsively is beyond me, because he's an extraordinarily thoughtful, methodical person when it comes to what he does with the power and influence that he has. But if anyone ever doubted that he had deep and sincere feelings about this issue, it certainly would have been eradicated by the fact that he appeared recently at the California Survival Sunday anti-nuclear benefit, along with President Reagan's daughter, Patty Davis, and Jackson Brown, and Graham Nash, and many other people.
Including Gary U.S. Bonds, who joined Bruce on stage. Continue. We asked Springsteen's manager, John Landau, one final question. What's up next for Bruce?
The River came out on October 10th, and the tour started on October 3rd. I think the River came out on October 10th or around there. And we've been just involved in this touring since then. We've done about 105 shows, and Bruce is going to do another, it'll be 40 shows by the end of the summer. So you're talking about 150 shows of the show that Bruce does, which is obviously a very exhausting, difficult thing to do. And I just think the only thing I know that we're going to do, the only thing I know about we're going to do when the tour is over is rest. I mean, in terms of any, are we going to do this kind of record or that kind of record, I don't, it's just, don't believe anything you hear right now, because I don't think any of us have any idea.